Mitch the Preacher here, preaching the gospel of gaming. I have a new video series I'm working on called What the Heck Is. I do a deep dive into a not yet released game, sometimes in closed alpha or open beta, and I try and dig up what I can about the title. So this first episode is going to be Amazon's New World. It's an MMORPG that takes place in the New World era. Was originally planned to be a survival game and has since become kind of a full-blown MMORPG with combat that's strongly inspired by Dark Souls. So let's take a deep dive in and see what it's all about. So who are you in New World? You are a shipwrecked 17th century explorer who has found their way to Aeternum, a place where the player comes to realize that nothing in this world truly dies. Similar to other open-world MMOs, the world meets you with both danger and wonder, and this theme of contrast runs through nearly everything that New World has to offer. What's truly unique about Aeternum is that there's a mineral that runs deep underground called Azoth, and this mineral has magical properties. And as you can imagine, these magical properties are what kind of jumpstart your character build into the game to determine how you're going to play it. What sets New World apart from other open-world MMOs is that it is classless and its combat is skill-based. Rather than simply tab targeting through enemies while clicking through your skills, the combat in New World is designed to be much more real-time, and I'm hoping that seeing as it's being developed by Amazon Game Services, which will of course be running on Amazon Web Services. Now if there's any game developer that's actually up to the task of creating a seamless online combat system without the dreaded desync, I'm hoping that it is the ones that provide the servers for the majority of MMOs in the market today. If done right, I anticipate that this skill-based combat could create some tremendous experiences. Now, as New World is an MMO, massively multiplayer, there will be, of course, two very different ways in which the player experiences the game. One in which they're pitted against the environment, and one in which they're pitted against other players. In terms of PvE, the player will encounter 4 very unique factions. The first being the Lost. They are described as wandering bodies of dead sailors and pirates who have washed up on the island. Next, you have the faction known as the Angry Earth. These are basically protectors of the island trying to fight back against intruders. They remind me a lot of the Ancients from World of Warcraft. And speaking of Ancients, the third faction that you will encounter are the Ancients, a technologically advanced civilization that met its downfall in a mysterious way. And finally, players will also be up against a faction known as the Corrupted. This group has ultimately been consumed by the mineral Azoth that runs below the ground here in Aeternum, and they can block roads and summon portals where enemies can get through to attack your area. If you can imagine Sauron from Lord of the Rings and the Daedra from Elder Scrolls having a baby, that strikes me as kind of what the Corrupted are all about. Now the last thing I want to talk about is a very controversial one, and that is, of course, PvP in New World. As recently as the end of last year, this was designed to be a free-for-all open PvP full loot system. So think of something like Ultima Online, where if you get killed by another player, you drop all your stuff and are back to square one. They have since changed that. They have now gone to an opt-in system, and the primary reason behind this is just that in their closed alphas they found that veteran players were preying on new players, and that made for a really poor first impression for new players, and without those new players we don't see growth, and without growth we don't see a stable player base. So I do have to agree with them on that, but it really comes down to how that opt-in process is implemented and what the rewards are for those that do opt in, and that isn't something that's been entirely clear. They've hinted at a honor point system, they've hinted at better rewards and increased experience rates for those that opt in. Now, to opt in, it is required that you be at least level 10 and that you have joined a faction. And I think that that is kind of the lore backing to their PvP. They really want the PvP to have lore implications, and by choosing a faction, you are ultimately choosing a side in the battle for Aeternum. How this PvP is actually going to shake out, kind of the primary resource you're going to be fighting over is land. So this territory war, which is going to be a 50v50 PvP zone. They're not describing it as instanced, but it does sound an awful lot like instanced. Basically, you'll have 50 versus 50, and then that area will then be closed off to all other players so that they can't enter after the fact. These 50v50 battles are going to be by appointment, so they're scheduled to be a particular time. It does sound like they have an awful lot of restriction on that PvP, and I know that some people aren't going to like that very much. I myself am extremely excited for Amazon's New World, and I really do hope that we have a massive shakeup in the MMO industry on our hands. For those that pre-order, closed beta hits next month, and they're planning to release a month after that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're curious to know what comes with the pre-order for New World, I've left a link in the description. And if you're as excited for New World as I am, please leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching.